Well, kia ora, everyone. I'm going to open with karakia tonight. Welcome to our, what are we, seventh online planning group. It's great to see you all. I will open with karakia and then we'll make a start. I've got a karakia and a bit of a whakatauki, and I expect you can see why I've chosen that one. So, e te whānau hui, whaia te mātauranga kia marama, kia whai take ngā mahi katoa, tū maia, tū kaha, aroha atu, aroha mai, tātou ia tātou katoa. And that means let us seek knowledge, build understanding, be purposeful, stand tall and strong, and be respectful. And I chose this whakatauki because our example tonight involves history, and I really like this one. Te tiro whakamuri hei arahi I ngā rātanga kei te kimihia. Oh, excuse pronunciation. Kimihia. Look to the past for guidance and see out what is needed. It's a little bit like those who do not learn from history, etc., etc. So it's great to see you all. It's great turnout tonight. Nikki's here as well, I think, but is just a name. Nice to see you, Nikki Edwards. For our session tonight, this is what we're going to do. We're going to look at key number 6, which we talked about at our last hui, and see if we've had anybody here has had a chance to have a go with it, and share some teacher examples. And then we're going to move on to our main focus for tonight, which is key number 7. And we're going to look at the New Zealand example from the book. She said, trying to wave the book. Here it is. So did anybody have a go with key number 6 since we last met? Anybody here want to share what they've been doing with it? Not so far. It is one that we've got a fair few examples on the website. Robin, you haven't used this one? It's Step Into a Moment. You haven't had a go with Step Into a Moment? Oh, you have? Do you want to tell us about it, or?
Yep, I could start.
Put you on the spot. Yeah.
Okay, no, that's all cool. So just to let everybody know, I'm actually not a practicing teacher in the classroom. So I'm a climate restoration relief teacher. And I was in a class this week for 2 days. And I trialed my whole program with another teacher, and with a step into the moment. And I don't know, but I did it I don't know whether I did what I was supposed to do, but anyway, we'll have a go. I got a video of the whole thing, but I don't think I'm allowed to show it because of, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Anyway, the school is quite happy for me to have videoed everything, given it was a new program. So that was pretty exciting. I was at Tiri Moana School in Auckland in year 5. And the slide, I can share the slide if, I don't know.
Yeah, let's make sure you can. I'll stop
sharing. You'll have to give me the sharing rights, will you?
I think you can.
I can't. I'll share screen. Okay. I'll see if I can find something.
Tell us what moment you stepped into.
Well, the moment I stepped into was when Kupe came across in the Hauraki Gulf. I told the story of Kupe chasing the octopus because to discover New Zealand. And at that point in the story, it goes that the octopus, he chased it, and then the octopus, and I sort of created that the birds were at the top, the kuaka, and there were other fish. It was all abundant fish life. We're talking way back in the 800 years ago, blah blah blah. And he came in, and I actually used a phrase, "Ngā poiti o te kupenga," which means that when he came into the Hauraki Gulf, I made this up, but they were floats, that he saw all the islands in the Hauraki Gulf, and they were all the islands like of a fishing net. So the islands were the fish, were the floats, and in between were just this abundant fish life that he could see that it was going to be for all his whānau and everything. So I sort of created the scene, and then when they came into it, chased, then the octopus came up onto the boat, and at that point he realized that he had his family on board, and what was he going to do? And the story goes that he threw something from the boat into the, well, that's what I read, into the sea, and then the tiweki, the octopus, thought that it was a people, so they So it went, and he was free, and he was free to establish himself in New Zealand. So the moment in time was just at that point when, you know, the octopus came on boat, and what would that have been like for him? And so I just played out all what you said, all the questions that you had in the key. But what was really interesting was that there were two perspectives that came up, and the first boy said, well, I think it was wrong of him to actually throw those things in to get the octopus off. You know, he was just trying to get up onto the boat, you know, and he was a bit of a bully, something like this. So, okay. And so that was interesting. And then another girl said, oh, well, the octopuses, they, you know, really, when they put their suckers, they've got these huge suckers and they go up and she was describing it and everything. So it was really cool. And then I said, so what about the light? And, you know, this was late in the day and, you know, like this. And then they said about the birds, and there were lots of birds, and there were people, fish jumping, and there was the waves crashing. And so I made everybody write. And then I just recorded, and then I didn't know what to do next with it. It was quite exciting, but, you know, they was definitely engaged. And I had the picture. That was what I was going to share, wasn't I? I was going to share the picture of, I don't know that I can get that picture. What does that mean? It's Zoom. Can you see my screen now or not?
It says you started. Oh, there we go. No, that's a document about tonight. That's an email from me.
Okay, so I've got to go back to this. Sorry, I'm a bit slow like you, Viv. I'm pleased that you.
So the difference is I wasn't recording when I did my blundering around.
So I've got a slideshow that I present to the students, and where was it? This was the picture. I'll see if I can make it big. So that was the picture with the birds.
Can't see that. Can't see it. Can't see it.
Can't see that?
No.
Can you see it now? No.
No.
Hang on. Share screen.
Maybe if you want to send it to me later, I can kind of paste it into the recording. Oh, okay. Yeah. Can't see it. Can't see that. We're being shared something else. Do you want to try one more time?
Okay. So
when it gives you an offer of what to share, just make sure that what's showing up is your picture.
Oh, I see. Share. Yeah, there it is.
There we go. There's your moment. Right. And there's the giant octopus.
Yes, and what I had done before, and I can't even quite remember, I had some YouTube clips that we had created. I talked about the whales and how they poop, and they love the whales pooper, by the way. Anyway.
Thank you.
So that was the picture I used.
Thanks, Robin. And what strikes me about what you're saying is that if the children are talking about its giant suckers and even taking the octopus perspective and thinking about it from their point of view, it really shows me that they've entered into that moment. Do you know what I mean? Which is kind of what the key is all about. I think unless you've sort of engaged with the story as a fellow participant, I'm not sure you're going to be thinking about the sort of the sounds that the suckers are making and the multiple perspectives. So that's the power of drama right there.
And then what do you do with that, Viv? That's what.
Well, that's the thing. These keys, that's a step into a moment, and then it might be an opportunity to maybe take another key, or as you did, turn it into a writing moment. Yeah.
Anyway, I was pleased I had a go.
Yes, thank you. Is it all right if we put that on the shared planning website?
Yeah, well, what I'll do is I'll transcribe what they said.
That would be terrific.
Yeah, and I can put that in. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, cool.
Anybody got comments on that, or questions for Robin, or thoughts? Looks amazing, says Nikki, who isn't going to show her face because she's eating her dinner. Yeah, I think that is one of the key drama moments that story moments that teachers love to explore through drama. That moment where the giant wheke and the waka meet, because it's full of drama but don't really know how to do it. So step into a moment is a good one, isn't it? Because it paints the scene around rather than kids all leaping about being octopuses or getting too inactive. Nice.
I
Okay.
will say this though, Viv, I did
Yeah.
listen half to your recording of the last session that you had because I wasn't able to make it.
Mm.
And I just realized that I didn't have, we went into a publishing company, that's part of it, but I
Mm-hmm.
could have had more tension. So I realized that I could, because the whole idea of this too is that I don't know who else gets here from Auckland here, but they don't know anything. Like when I asked them about what islands were in Hauraki Gulf, just nothing. They
Right.
didn't know any islands. And it was quite, yeah. And also about climate change, about climate restoration, nothing.
So you're
So
really
it's
starting to build some knowledge, right? You
yeah,
really need to
yeah,
build that foundational knowledge. Yeah.
which is from the tension in the story, which I read, what I said. So there's a lot to learn, but thanks. But I was proud of myself. I had to go.
Very proud of you having a go. I'm very proud of you sharing on the hoof like this tonight too. It's great. Thank you, Robin. Um,
Well, any contribution is valued. Thank you.
so some of the other stories that teachers have shared are here up on the slides. This seems to be one that teachers in Aotearoa find useful for exploring traditional stories or culturally sensitive stories, because as we said last week, we're not messing with what happens. We're not getting into role and presuming to speak the thoughts of the character or invent little bits of action or mess with the story. We are painting a picture around that. And so yeah, this seems in both the examples here and the ones you've talked about and the one I shared last week are cultural stories. They don't have to be, but it's one that teachers are finding useful for that. So here's one that some a cluster group in Whakatane explored. Imagine this moment. There's a battle going on, and the wife of the chief holds up her child in her arms. This is a historical moment, and says, "This child needs a different future. This child is a symbol of our both of our tribes, and if you don't stop it, this child will be sacrificed." That's a moment, right? And so they were able to explore that moment and what might happen around without taking liberties with that highly sensitive kind of dramatic moment. And this next one is a local story from we went to this school, Tim Kauri Hohori, and they've recently been gifted a story about where the name of the school comes from. The Kauri tree is stripped to reveal white bark to help whānau navigate through the bush. And this was traced back to this Hini Amaru, who's a descendant, an ancestor. So they used Step Into a Moment to teach the children of the school the story behind the school's name, and none of the children had ever encountered that story before, so that was kind of amazing. And so they stepped into the moment where she's stripping the bark off the tree and hoping that her whānau will be able to find their way. And it's not a high tension moment in some ways, but it was intriguing. This movement and the moment was intriguing, so that it did hook the children in. So there we go. And yeah, those examples and others can be found up on the website. So please add yours as well if you can. Any more comments on that key number 6 before we move on? What do you think about all this, Tim, as someone who's not dealing in these stories? You got any thoughts?
Well, just kind of, I'm always intrigued to hear all the stories from New Zealand and how, you know, redolent they are in symbolism and how, lucky you are, I suppose, to have such a rich heritage of stories and the idea of stepping into a moment, as you say, is that those things that could easily be passed by. So if you're reading the story, in a picture book or looking at slides, and in that story, Robin, that you were telling, that moment would have captured children's imagination. But if you're just turning the page and seeing what happens next, that moment is very quickly gone. You're moving on to the next thing that happens. And if you pause it at that point, as you did, then that's the opportunity for children to
Yeah.
explore that, which is the thing. One of the reasons I got so excited about using drama when I started as a teacher was because as a child I remember doing that. I remember reading books, getting to I can remember as a bit of an anecdote, but I can remember reading a book about pirates. I don't know how old I was, not very old, 7 or 8, and I got to this page in this book about pirates. It was my favourite page, and then I just put the book down and just started running around my classroom
Yeah.
and climbing up the walls and and fighting invisible enemies and so when I started getting
Oh, he's frozen. Is he frozen for other people, or is it just me? Oh, what do you think he's saying? I think he's saying when I'm started getting into gut drama, I rediscovered that joy of pretending, and he's talking about the pause, isn't he? Ironically, he's talking about the pause, the power of the pause. And yeah, step into a moment has got that about it. It allows us to pause the story so that we can really sort of be in a. Sorry, Tim, putting words in your mouth, but he's paused. So I remember that too. Funnily enough, mine was pirates as well. Our teacher used to allow us to, or used to instruct us to go off into the field and like play and then come back in and write down our stories. And I honestly think that's why I'm doing what I do now, because I just loved that. It was a very simple lesson plan, but I remember that we did it. She used to call it writing our novel, and we used to go off and play the next part of the novel and then come down and write down what was done. Sorry, Tim, you paused,
well,
ironically.
no, I'm sorry.
Talking about the
I
pause.
very rudely disappeared, I think, and I don't know where I got up to.
You said you said when
Sorry.
you rediscovered drama, and I think you were going to say you rediscovered that power of playing
Oh
out.
right. Oh,
Yeah.
I went on and talked about octopuses, and I was going on and on and on and doing all kinds of things like this, and then I realised that nobody else was moving, and I thought, oh, I'm talking to myself now, aren't I?
No, we're giving you our rapt attention. I think we got the gist. I think
That's all lost. That's all gone now.
gone,
That's
gone. Yeah.
gone. Can't do it again. Oh well.
Not to
You'll just
worry.
have to imagine.
All right.
But it's
So
good what you said, Tim. I'm just
go on.
wondering, because what you're saying is I didn't do that. So you pause the story as when the child, because I didn't really know what to do. So when he had all the suckers and the, oh, you said that's right, because it goes on to the wood, and it, the wood, he's interested in the wood because he thinks the wood's food. This is what she said, But so what you was, I didn't know how to continue on. I didn't know, and I think what you're both saying is just go and get into play, which I loved. I could do that easily.
Honestly,
Yeah.
it can be a really powerful thing. Yeah.
I'd have very much. I think I would have been very interested in following that idea from the point of view of the octopus and how we could maybe communicate with the octopus. How do you communicate with an octopus? It wouldn't talk because that wouldn't make sense, but it might communicate with us in other ways. That might be quite interesting.
So good. So
we mustn't continue, Viv, because you've got a whole other key to talk about now.
That's all right. It's all right. Let's post the octopus. It'll hang him in the air by one tentacle, and yeah, let's move on to key number 7. And I've dropped the slides out because I'm going to do the old whiteboard thing. And I'd like to take, I know this is a key that a number of people have used. This is called Watch a Drawing. And I think I wrongly titled it Create a Drawing when I was advertising this session, but we've called all the keys by names that describe what the children are going to do. So the children in this one don't create the drawing, they watch the drawing appear in front of their eyes as if by magic. And there is something very, very magic in that. And given that we're not in a classroom, we're online, I'm going to try and reproduce something of that by using one of these online whiteboards. So tell me when you can see it. And I'm going to follow the you can see that, right? Yep, great. I'm going to follow pretty much word by word the example as written in the book, and I'll just take you through the first steps of it. As with all the other keys, the framework is the same, the method is the same, and the two examples are really, really different. So this is an example that I might teach in New Zealand. I've not taught this exact one, but I think if you're a teacher in New Zealand, you'll find that it's one you can really adapt to your locale. So here we go. It says beckon to the students to sit in a semicircle on the mat. So you gathering them around, and you're checking they can all see the whiteboard. And you start by saying something, you're setting the context by setting that it's in the past. So you're saying something like, now I thought we might go back in time and undertake a bit of an investigation. It begins like this. And if I'm ever drawing on a whiteboard, I always do this. I always take the lid off the pen in silence, look at the pen, look at the whiteboard, look at the pen, look at the children, and then start. And there's something in that little exchange that signifies the importance of the tip of the pen. I of course just ruined it by talking it through to you, but can you imagine how that kind of draws children in? It holds a bit of silence. So imagine now that I am using this pen to draw on the whiteboard with. Let me choose my color and choose my thickness. And I'm going to work as I do with the children, which is I actually drop to silence and I just work, and I wait for the children to sort of make comments and notice what they're seeing. So will you do that for me? Even though we're in a sort of an online thing, will you sort of unmute and just kind of say what comes to mind as you're watching this picture?
Mountains. A
Mountain range.
That's a campsite.
Medieval.
It's a series of buildings. It's not a mountain range at all, is it? It's
And in the classroom, I wouldn't be making any comment, but I might be looking at the children, raising my eyebrows, going, looking at the nib of my pen again, but I'm just going to keep drawing.
Viv,
Yeah.
just pause for a second, because I know this isn't what you would do in the classroom, but this is the first time I think that I've ever watched this happen. I've done it hundreds and hundreds of times with children, but I've never actually sat and watched that happen.
Yeah.
And if you just pause for a minute, it would just be quite interesting, not for people to guess what's going on, but just the impression that it's having on them.
Sure.
Because I don't know about the rest of you, but the impression is that my eyes are kind of glued on this picture. I'm just kind of absolutely kind of riveted to it, because it keeps changing as you're going along. I keep thinking, oh, it's not that, it's something else. Now what's she doing? What's happening there, and where is this? And it's absolutely extraordinary how it works, and I don't quite understand what's going on inside my head.
I love this, Tim, because as you say, you've done this hundreds of times and I've watched you do it, but there's something so delightful in experiencing it, isn't there? We get this every time we meet and do this. Yeah.
When I'm doing it, of course, I know exactly where I'm going. I'm going, and I'm enjoying, the children's reaction to it. But I know what I'm doing, but I don't know what you're doing. I should know what you're doing, because obviously I've read the book, but
That's okay.
I can't remember.
Are other people feeling that sort of sense of unfolding delight and being riveted?
Yep.
Mm.
Yeah. It really works, this. And it wouldn't be the same. I mean, I was going to say this afterwards, but we'll say it now. It wouldn't be the same if I just showed you the picture in my hand that I'm copying, would it? It's the magic of drawing appearing in front of someone, and it's quite intimidating as a teacher because you sort of feel like your drawing skills are on show, but they're not really, are they? Because this is and actually, why don't we show children drawing? You know, we show them handwriting. Why don't we show them meaning making? I just love this key so much. May I keep going now?
Oh yes, please. Yes.
But yes, all those comments, the meta comments are good too. So keep the comments flowing. I've just realized that I draw with my tongue sticking out.
Oh.
I'm now starting to wonder if it's not just one house rather than three.
Yes. Yes.
Linked some
Yeah.
way, all of them.
Oh, hang
Andor
on.
could be right.
In which case it's a large house. So then you wonder who and how many live in it.
Oh, I know what it is now. I'm not going to say. I think I've remembered.
I'm trying to find a place to draw.
Historic.
What gives you that idea?
Or the chimneys. That means it was born in perhaps the Industrial Revolution times.
Ooh.
It's a school.
Kohanga. Maybe.
What was that, Robin?
Is it a kohanga or something like that, or a kura?
What makes you say that?
Well, you got the Maori signs, those sort of motive things, and
Where is it? Is it in a highly built up area, or is it like a country school?
We're
near
wondering
White-
what's around it. We're wondering where it is. We're wondering how long ago it is.
It's, yeah, I think it gives me the impression it's sort of Waitangi or something like that. It's kind of the first school.
Who lights the fires in the morning?
Oh no.
But Viv, just there's a you can't see it, I don't think, but there's a menu that's kind of hanging across the picture.
Is
I don't know
there?
if everybody else can see it. It
Yeah,
just says explore new tools. Can you see that?
No.
You can't see it.
You can get rid of that. I think that's on your, because it's an
Can we?
interactive whiteboard. So you try and get rid of that.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yep.
I just clicked on the X and it disappeared.
Yeah, if
Okay.
you've got something blocking your view,
Yeah,
you can
that's made
actually
it much
interact on this. So you get rid of that.
Yeah.
Oh, it's
Yeah.
the fire. It's on fire.
yeah.
It's burning.
So I wonder if it's during the day or whether it's at night and no one knows it's on fire yet.
Gosh, you can imagine how the children would find this.
Tell me
They've
more.
just waited through and trying to guess this beautiful home, and then all of a sudden there's flames appearing.
It's quite a tension, isn't it?
Oh, it is.
Oh, you can't quite see that. So what do you make of it?
Historical school burning.
A historical school
Burning
burning.
on
Mm.
The day our school burned to the ground.
The day a school burned to the ground.
No, Evelyn said our school, I
Our
think, didn't you?
school.
Our school,
Our
my
school.
goodness.
Our school.
Wow. Well, if you were a pupil at the Foxton State School, it would be your school. The day after the fire at Foxton State School on October the 11th, 1918, a note was placed under the door of the Manawatu Herald newspaper. So a little note was slipped under the door, a piece of paper, and on the outside of the note, in bold ink letters, it said, "Important, please open." And on the inside of the note, when the Herald reporter unfolded it, the note itself was written in pencil, and it began like this: "Mr. Hornblow, I suppose you are wondering how the school caught on fire. Well, I will tell you the whole secret." So what have we found out?
that there was someone that wanted to burn the school.
How do we know someone wanted to burn the school?
Someone's potentially going to confess.
Because how else would he know the whole secret unless he or she was the perpetrator?
Yeah.
Is that what you're thinking?
Maybe.
Someone's told them,
Or someone's told them?
or they've been in on it. There was some, a group, I would say, that have been unhappy. Fire is usually the result of.
It's someone who wants attention.
Why do you say that, Tim?
It's the nature of the way it's written.
I suppose you
well,
are wondering how the school caught fire.
Well, quite. It's a sort of, it's not like I burnt the school down written in crayon, sort of, angry. It's more kind of, I want people to notice me. I want people to be paying attention.
He didn't slip
Well,
the
I
note
think
under
I
the
know-
door of the principal, did he? He slipped it under the
No.
door of the newspaper office.
Right.
So that could
Right.
mean simply that he knows something that's, he or she knows
Or
something
she.
that's really important
Mm.
about the fire. And they would, to me, it seems like they know that not a lot of people will know whatever they know.
Mm.
And it sounds too like that's important that it was burnt. But, there was no other way that this could be resolved and that they needed to burn it. And
I
notice.
wonder what makes a person want to burn down a school.
Anger.
What was
What
that? Ev?
possible reason could the people have for wanting to burn down a school? Oh,
What
that's a tough
possible
one, isn't it?
reason would they have for wanting to burn down a school?
They're angry at the teacher,
Mm.
Right, that's the one that
don't
comes
like
straight to
school
mind.
for a multitude of
Right.
reasons.
They're
Had a bad
angry at what a
experience.
school represents, you think, Ev?
Or
Or they're
it's
angry at an
something-
individual person for their behaviour?
Yeah,
towards
more
them?
something that's happened within the school or
Mm.
continues to happen. And if they get rid of the school, it can stop it, is the thinking.
You've got a
somehow.
point, because do you burn down the school because of something that happens to you one time, or is it a continual, it's got to build up to the point
Yeah.
that feels like
Yeah,
your
could
only
be.
action? Right.
And it's 1918. And
1918.
they were squashing, and they were squashing Te Reo. And yes. So
Sorry,
that no,
what does that mean, Robin? Sorry, I didn't understand that last thing you said.
well, all the native of the Maori were unable to speak Te Reo at that time, and they had to speak English. So
Oh,
Maybe
right.
it's that.
there was
Oh, okay,
something
so
about that.
right,
Mm.
right.
Or I just had a thought, perhaps it's the opposite. Perhaps someone has been teaching Te Reo and someone doesn't like that.
Right. Yes.
Maybe.
So maybe we don't have a victim of a school system. We have an opposer to some behavior that's going on in the school. Maybe.
Actually, just again, Viv, can we just pause at that point? Just
Yeah.
how wonderful that is. How but you're not filling the space. That's the thing that you're just tiny step by tiny step. You're opening up the story, but you're not filling the space. So we've had a complete turnaround there from in terms of what the story might be about, because you haven't done that. You haven't told us what happened. You're letting our imagination wander into that space and then start to fill it up. So now we're kind of thinking, oh, it could be that, couldn't it? Well, that was a complete 180 there, wasn't it? Complete turnaround. That as soon as you said that, that made my head went, oh yeah, gosh, yeah. What if it's that? That's completely different. I was definitely going along the lines of the school, you know, and a disgruntled pupil, and you know, and people sort of, you know, kind of had a bad time with the teacher and all the rest of it. But now suddenly this is got a much bigger and wider picture here about sort of cultural conflict and difference of, you know, of opinion, and it kind of, you know, expanding out into history and all sorts of directions.
So I think we want to remind everyone who's using the keys to really take time over these inquiry parts, because dramatic inquiry is drama plus inquiry. So the inquiry, the questioning, the wondering, the leaving space for kids to make new thoughts is at least 50% of what's going on here. And as a teacher, I nearly always want to move faster. Like I stopped myself right then. I stopped myself moving forward because I was like, there might be more, there might be more, there might be more. And I just hold, because yeah, that lateral thinking that is going to come, but only if you leave it space to come out loud. So yeah, definitely. I mean, it just says in the book, it just says, you know, let's describe what we can see. Now, what are you wondering about? So remember, when you see that in the book, that's like a 20-minute wondering and lots of holding back. What Dorothy would say, parsimony, you know, we're dripping in the information. You won't be surprised to learn that this is a true story. There is a thing that happened, and that person would have had their reasons. And I also don't think you'll be disappointed that it wasn't your reason. I think we're swimming in the true inquiry space of the brotherhood of all, a sisterhood of all those who might burn down a school here. We're making connections to this moment in history, and we're doing something very complex, which is understanding that there's complexity, and there's yeah, complexity and multiple reasons why things can happen, and that's actually quite important in studying history, I think. So not just plunging into the facts of this occasion.
I think also, Viv,
Go.
I don't know if we did actually put it in the book, but I think one of the principles of the book is less is more.
Yeah.
And this is a perfect illustration of you know, not filling the space, not over talking it, and giving too much detail and taking that away from the children, but actually just leaving that open, you know, giving it time to breathe, and then starting to. The other thing I was just thinking, sorry to interrupt you.
That's all right, please do.
Was the importance of the date.
Yeah.
So 1918, and having obviously a cultural understanding and a historical understanding of what was happening in the country at that time is so important to understanding the possible dimensions of this. And it's very interesting to experience this in the way that I am, because I always know that. I've you know, if I do something like this, I've researched it and found out about it, and you know, but I'm now experiencing it from somebody who doesn't know. I don't really know very much about what was happening in New Zealand in 1918, and I don't know how the cultural and historical dimensions of that. And so another sort of important thing, I think, is that in your position as the teacher, you can start introducing children because now they're curious. I think this is an important thing, is that once you have, I'm really curious now. I want to know more.
Yeah.
Because the space is empty. I want to go away and read about this and find out what was going on, because you've made me curious.
Yeah.
10 minutes ago, I wasn't curious because I didn't have anything to be curious about, because I didn't know anything about it.
And if I just started telling you the story of Foxton School Fire, you wouldn't be as curious as you were by having it layered in.
No, I'd have felt satisfied to some extent. I would have thought, oh, I've learned something new, but it wouldn't have generated curiosity. I wouldn't have wanted to go, do my own research.
Well, I must admit that the same thing happened to me when I wanted to find an example to use with this key. I had already done an example of a school fire in another region, but I wanted to find a school fire in this region. And trust me, we've had lots of school fires in New Zealand because we've had lots of, not because we've had lots of fraught things, but because we've got lots of wooden buildings. And, these have happened accidentally and for all sorts of deliberate reasons, as in this case. But can you imagine how delighted I was to find that there'd been not only a school fire, but a school fire where the next morning a note was slid under the newspaper offices with like all this beautiful I think I screeched out loud, oh, delicious. And I did find myself deep diving into history. So the key has done its job at that point. And like Robin with her wheke moment, you're going to want to do more with it because the children are going to want to do more. So I'm going to jump out of my whiteboard now and take you back to the slides. Where I had a slide with the example illustrated, but I didn't want to show you the picture because that would have kind of given the game away. So that's the picture from the book. Oh, sorry, I'll just get your reflections on it. So I'm going to tell you in a moment what I do next in this particular example, but basically the key is offered as a hook, if you like, a way to draw students into an historical moment or an imagined moment. And I've used it so many times in so many ways. It's used at the beginning of the Wooden Arms, if you've ever done that drama with me, where we create the hall and then we watch the hall change over time. We've done it, we've drawn a river and then we've put blood flowing down the river. It's always just to add that kind of element. You sort of settle in and then something happens that makes you catch your breath and the tension arrives, but without words. So what are your thoughts about this one? Have you used something similar yourself? Have you got reflections like Tim as a participant on what it felt like to be drawn in that way? Can you imagine times that you might use it? I just want to give you a chance to give your reflections.
I think the exciting thing for me was that every time somebody said something, it wasn't what I was thinking. It's that whole notion of, oh, that might be right, and oh, that might be right. And so it opens it up really wide rather than narrowing it down, I suppose.
Which is why, Ev, as teacher, you keep stum. And you have to be so careful to not reveal anything with your face. You're not going, oh, could be, or oh, nearly, or any of that. And actually the children learn very quickly not to read you. They're reading the board, they're reading the imagery. And it's like a bit like when you go into the role and you disappear from the classroom. If you become a po-faced drawer, they suddenly open up because it's like you're not there. And they have these whole discussions and they run up to the board and they point at things and they talk about it as though you're not there because you've disappeared. The more silent you can be. I don't know if that really came across today, but that's why, because we need the brains exploding with possibility and we need to be hearing each other's ideas. Yeah. Cool.
I hear that, the play thing again with what, you know, you said for me with the octopus, and, you know, what you said, Tim, is to stop and play. I hear with this that, well, how, you know, let's, like, really for history as well, like really a leg in for history, you know, really exciting young people to really know and learn about history in a way that they've never done before. You know, I mean, that's relevant to them, the schoolhouse. It's like, you know, what happened at that time and how would it affect now, and what if it happened now? You know, I just think that there's so much room for play, and for the young people to break off into two, to really express themselves as to what do they think, you know.
You're right, aren't you? It's the play quadrant in the teacher's compass of 4 quadrants. This is the play quadrant, and you don't have to worry because you're going to bring them in later to exactly what this one was. And when you said that about history, it reminded me of another time I did this key. It was up in Auckland, and do you remember a little while ago there was a day when someone got the windows of their house shot in by someone driving past? This actually happened recently. Believe it or not, that very day I did a drawing of a house and the shots happening in the window panes of the house, because that was the historical event that I was teaching about, that this happened it happened to a landowner in Auckland, just around the corner from the school. And I did that, and it was the same day that the same thing, you know, had happened in today's history. And it was like this synergy across time, connection making. Quite hard to draw bullet holes on windows. I had to do it with a sort of percussive sound to the pen, and then do the little lines going on. It was a little bit more like acting than drawing, but yeah, nice. Is it your sense, people, that it does draw you in? That you yeah, and it's drawing you in through the iconic, isn't it? Instead of the teacher in role, the inactive, or the symbolic, the talking that we often do through inquiry questions and that kind of thing. And that's why I think it's just so freeing and lovely. Any other reflections? All right, I'll move on. So go on, Tim.
I'll say a little more if there's time.
Go on,
Is there
then.
time, or
Yeah. Go.
I think I was kind of reflecting as you and Evelyn were talking about that importance of the teacher remaining a kind of a blank slate, as it were. So you know where this is going, but you're not looking for the children to guess. So the idea of this is not, oh, you're on the right lines, or, you know, that isn't at all what you're doing. You're holding that moment in the process. You know exactly where this is going, but and the resources that you have ready to come. You know, it's kind of theatrical in that sense, isn't it? Is you know that the letter's coming. So if you ask the question, who would want to burn down a school? Why would they want to do that? You can hold that moment, and you can explore that moment, can't you? And actually, when I was thinking about how one of the things that I do now is that I forget where I'm going. I just go, oh, I don't care. It doesn't matter where I'm going. I know the letter's coming, so that'll look after itself. And I just sit in that moment and I go, yes, it could be, couldn't it? And then just kind of explore the implications of that. You know, it might be somebody who's had a really rough time at school and they've got a grudge against a teacher, and they get a box of matches and they storm down there, and then, but the letter doesn't sound like that. It doesn't sound like somebody who's done it in a fit of rage and then regretted it. It sounds like a calculated person, don't you think? You know, the letter is written in a thoughtful way, not in an angry way. You know, I burnt down the school because like that Mr. Taylor beat me or something. You sit in that moment and you explore the possibilities of it, and then you go, well, let me tell you about what's going to, you know, and then you move on to the next bit.
Well,
and
here's the thing is often my transition into the
that's
the one I often use. It's like, well, here's the thing. On this occasion it was this, and there's no disappointment. In fact, there's more, like, I'm more hooked on the story of Foxton Schoolhouse now because I've had this conversation with you. I've never shared this example with anyone before. I've only written it in the book. So I was so excited today knowing that I was going to share this with you guys.
Yeah.
So
So my last thought on it,
yeah.
and that's counterintuitive actually.
Mm.
The idea that actually the more invested you are in it, you kind of feel that the more you invested in it, it's like, this is my story. I want this story to be about the boy who was beaten, right? But it doesn't work like that. It really doesn't, because you as the teacher are not imposing the story on it. What's the imposition is coming from the story itself. So it's like we're turning the page and we're going, oh no, it's not what we thought. It's this. And then
But you've
you'll
really
settle.
got to sit with the kids and like I said tonight, I think if you take one thing away from me, it is that sense that I'm eager to share the story with you, but
Right.
I've got to remember to actually tie ho on that. My job for the first whole bit is for you to wait for you to be obsessed with your ideas about it, and then we're all in it together, and then the story can arrive, the true story can arrive. But yeah, you're right, Tim, and you could easily hold it even longer. You could start with that drawing and then do some creative work about that school before you even announce the actual historical place. You could turn it into a whole inquiry with creative aspect to it. I mean, all our keys are written as once off drama experiences that you could do in a single lesson, but you can also probably begin to see ways in which they could be extended out. So I will just take you through the planning steps. So in order to plan this, obviously you've got to have your purpose. So I'm imagining that I'm a local teacher who wants to teach the history of my school. If you want to teach the history of something else that didn't have a fire, you can still find a picture that develops, and then you can add that tension to it. You can have a fence that breaks down. You can have but you're going to need a context, and you're going to need the activities that you're going to take the children to. So it won't surprise you to hear that in this case, we actually use a bit of teacher in role. You can go back and find the example in the book, but we welcome the police officers to investigate the scene, and we do almost a little bit of a mini mantle really on what we might need to look out for as we go around the fire scene. And all of that is a launch pad into researching about Foxton history. And it's fascinating because Foxton Town Centre is built with brick, because they passed a rule that there weren't to be any more wooden buildings because they'd had so many fires. And to this day, that still impacts on the shape of the main street in Foxton. That's very unusual in New Zealand to have a brick main street. And that's why, because there were these arsonists going about doing things. I can't remember actually whether the school fire was part of that arsonists trail, whether it was a deliberate fire or not, but it's part of history. So I need a context, and we're going to be using our hexagon. We're going to be coming up with our characters, locations, events. And in my case, those were given to me by history. And I knew that I needed to signal to you quite quickly in the piece that we were in Foxton in a particular time in history. Then, of course, you're going to have to select your image. Now, in my case, it was the school, but in another context, you'll need to find an image. And I suggest an image that suggests location, or buildings, places are often images that I go to, rivers, mountains, rather than people or objects or things. I've done things with tall multi-story buildings and then added, it's fascinating when you draw a big multi-story building and then you add demolition services to the top, and then in one window you put a little pot plant and some window curtains, and it looks like there's someone still living there who isn't ready for her home to be demolished. So you've got to select your image, and then it is important, you need to simplify that to a point where you can draw it, and you need to practice it, because you don't want to be betraying all over your face the fact that you're not happy with your drawing. So if you want to do the wahine, the wahine sinking, which is one I've done lots of times, you need to practice what the sinking of the wahine actually looked like, and how you're going to, so it's a different kind of planning. You might be interested. There's the picture of Foxton school, the one I was using for my drawing today. I don't think they are Māori images, but I think it's more of that sort of Norwegian influence, European influence, but it's beautiful that they evoked that for us. And it's not that they're not in a way. Once I put them on my drawing, they became that for us. And there on our right is the, I'll leave you, when I send you the slides, or when you look at them online, you'll be able to see the, oh no, actually I know where you can find that. You can find that on the website. We've got all the documents to do with the real fire. So I was very careful to work with those, and I practiced that. I could show you the whiteboard where I practiced, and actually tonight's one came out better than my practice, so hurrah. And there are all the resources for that. So yeah, it's not a standalone, because it's going to draw children into a world, and then you're going to need to explore that world, whether it's with a piece of writing or whether it's with a whole inquiry. And for this, it would launch a really nice history inquiry about Foxton and why it was built that way, and who the arsonist was. And I'm hoping that you're intrigued enough to go find those things and read the stories. Do you think you might? Because it does sort of hook you in, doesn't it? So my last question for you in the final minute is, can you think of a context, either historical or from a story or from something that you want to teach, that you could explore with a drawing? As I say, places, big ships, buildings are what I suggest. What are you thinking, Robin? Oh, she did a thumbs up and then she disappeared. Anybody else got one? Anybody else got one they could think of?
Can people hear Viv?
Can you hear me? Oh, did
Breaking
I
up,
freeze?
Viv.
Is she breaking up?
Am I freezing? I'm here, I'm here, I'm here.
I think you're coming back. I think you're
I'm
coming
here.
back. You're coming back. You're re-emerging.
Yeah.
I went lumpy, did
Yeah.
I? Anybody got a story they know they could explore, or a picture they know they could draw in front of their kids or class?
We're losing you again.
Yeah.
Oh, shucks.
Viv, I'll just take over while you're.
Yeah, go for
I'll
it.
take over while your resets itself. Yeah. So anybody got an idea of a context that they might use, something in their own teaching or something as to?
Can people hear me? I can't see myself on the
Yes.
screen, but I'm here.
You can.
Yeah. So I had a go at this on Thursday, having tried the number 6 on the day before, and we're doing narrative. So I had to sort of set out, the structure of a narrative with character setting, problem, solution, ending sort of thing. And when I got to the problem solution part, I just did this drawing part by doing a map on the floor, so on a big piece of paper. And, I was quiet, like you said, and intrigued to hear the commenting. The first part for me that was intriguing was who would speak, because, technically when we're down the mat, it's whole body listening. No one's supposed to talk unless you put your hand up. So I was interested to see how that would work. Once 1 or 2, 3, 4 sort of started shuffling through with ideas, people began to talk to one another, which was good to hear. And just sort of when I stopped the drawing, everyone had got onto the idea that it was a map. And then I used your line, which, what do you make of this? I let them do a think, pair, share over that. And basically, I just sort of moved them slowly, as you say, towards looking at what the problem was for this setting that we'd created. And I had 2 really good options come by, and I said to the class, well, which one do you prefer? Took a vote. I let them lead it. And then I said, well, how are we going to solve this solution? And so it came from that, solve that problem. So it came from the drawing of the map, and it fitted with the previous day, my step into the moment, my little action. And then we were excited about it. So the next step for them was to go and I gave them a couple of days before, I'd given them a handful of Lego each to make a character for their story we were going to write. So they had to apply this to their character that they were writing to. So it was about the setting about the solution, problem, sorry, and the solution. So I used the map as my drawing, and then I said to them, I gave them a piece of paper, folded in half. One side was the problem, the other was solution. So I said, you draw the problem yourselves for your character story, because as I watched and listened to what was happening in the class, I realized with drawing, they were adding in detail they wouldn't have written down.
So true.
Is the thing big? Is it small? And it shows it, it's the picture makes 1,000 words sort of thing. So they actually ended up with a lot more detail and had to think more carefully about their problem. And then on the other side, I got them to write with words. I wanted 4 different solutions. So we'd do think, pair, share, etc., and go from there. So it was my stepping point into that part of the structure of the narrative that we're working on. And then tomorrow we'll go, we'll probably go back to the beginning of the story. But anyway, that's how I used it.
Thank you.
Yeah. I just one more thing. The thing I realized doing it, like you said before, the reaction of the children, I was surprised how in those 2 days of having a go at these 2 things, the KCs or the way we worked together completely shifted almost the culture of the class just in 2 opportunities. We changed. I'm reading Heathcote's biography at the moment, and I see what's happening a little bit, but we changed from me being the know-it-all, so to speak, as she puts it in her book, the teacher who knows everything, to drawing out from the inside what was going on for them. And the other thing was, I had a little learning point where I could say to the children, listen to one another, let their ideas spark your ideas. It's hard to teach that in a specific moment. So I grabbed it and I just said, build on each other's ideas. It's not about you. not how I said it, but that's where they're at, right? They're all about themselves and getting their story down. But as soon as they start to really listen, they can add and add and add to their own idea, which is the creative process. So I thought that was a bit of a gem that came out of it, because how else do I teach that? Adding to other people's ideas and drawing and making your own bigger and better, so that was quite cool. So thank you.
Oh, kia ora. That's just so great. When you first told us that description of them gathering on the mat and how normally that means one thing, but this time it meant another, and the fact that they could adjust that, I thought that's really telling, that they can shift, as you say, shift the culture of the classroom to a more collaborative one. Congratulations. That's big stuff you're attempting to do there. Yeah.
Well, it was just loads of fun, to be honest. I was surprised. It was just fun. So I think because we're in a setting in a forest, which is, as we use those sound and silence and dark and light and all that stuff, we talked that through. We realized the bottom of the forest was quite dark with the picture I had as an image. So I pulled the curtains on the second day, and just to step us into that feel of, well, something different's going to happen. We've moved from maths and fitness, now we're something's happening here.
You built
So
some tension.
It's a bit like putting the hat on, right, for a role, or taking it off. So I think I might keep that going, pull the curtains, and as long as I don't think we're kind of exclusively doing weirdo stuff behind the curtains. But anyway, we'll see what happens.
I want to take one more minute of your time, people, just to share this, Catherine, because I've seen Tim invite children to draw, and I've seen him bring, how you said that it makes them build detail for their writing. A little kind of of course moment I had was when Tim was watching people do their drawings, and he used the 6 dimensions as a question. Then he went, so where's the light coming from? And they would draw it, and where's the darkness, what's moving, what's still, and they put them in the drawings, and then they added that to their writing. Duh, I'd never thought of that. So when you're doing those drawings, bring those 6 dimensions into your questioning, and it will enhance their drawings and then also enhance their writing, right, Tim?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, those 6 dimensions are artistic. They're not exclusive to writing. that was a big eye-opening moment to me when I kind of came to that understanding. So if you look at a painting, it's full of movement, even though of course it's a still medium. And you know, there'll be noise in it if you have the imagination to hear it. So drawings are, particularly for young children, I don't know what age children you're working with, Catherine, but for young children, drawing first what they're going to write is kind of almost an essential step, because they've already done a lot of the thinking, and then they can turn their picture into words. And as Viv says, if you invite them to add the dramatic imagination to their drawings, then that's helping them to, you know, to bring that through into their writing.
And I think we're modeling that with the key like this, where we model meaning making through drawing, and we honor drawing. And it was when I was watching a young teacher use this, a young male teacher use this, he didn't consider himself a drawer, but he took the time to work out how he was going to convey something to them visually, and they loved it. They felt the novelty in the classroom, and for those of them that were, you know, drawers themselves, they saw themselves in his teaching. So there's something about that. There's something about bringing ourselves as meaning makers, iconic meaning makers to the children, that it's just a beautiful thing to do. So I do hope you'll use this key. And when you do, I hope you'll share it on our website. We've got the shared planning space. If you visit there, you'll be able to see other teaching examples with this key and with the others. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Can I just say one thing?
You certainly can, Tim, especially if you put your hand up.
But just before you properly finish, the one thing that didn't come out of the talking about other contexts is the context that you used was historical context, and then we were talking about maps and things. The other context, which is the one that I'm going to talk about in the next session that we're doing tomorrow morning, isn't it now?
Yeah. Come join us, 6 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah. Is or alternatively watching it later in the day on video, or later in the week, is I'm doing a fairy tale. So we're going to start with the picture, and then we're going to go into a fairy tale. So that's another sort of way of
No, we're not.
of using key. We are. I'm not doing what's in the
Are you
book.
not doing the one from the book?
No.
Oh,
I actually did it this week. I
Fair
actually did it this week in a school, so I want to
Okay.
talk about what happened in the school, because
Okay.
it's absolutely
Fascinating.
fresh in my memory. And people can look at what's in the book, and that's fine. But yeah, what I did this week, I want to talk about. So yeah,
Look forward to
there you
that.
go.
Yeah. So it doesn't have to be history, you're saying. It could be dropping into a fictional story.
A story, absolutely. Yeah. Well, or indeed from a book, like it is with the wooden arms. Yeah. All right. Look, I'm really sorry. We usually try to stick to time, but that was just so delicious to hear your example. And if other people have got ideas, please send them to us. Share them with us. Bring them next time, because what we do every time we meet is we first of all recap on what people have tried with the previous key. So we'll be meeting again in a month's time. I think our next date is the 2nd of June. And we'll be looking at key number 8, which is called Create a Drawing, which is different because that's where the children help. It's quite a different feel. There you'll see there are similarities, but there is difference in that it's co-constructed. So thank you. Go away and read about Foxton School's history. It's fascinating. Thanks to Foxton School, who gave permission for us to share their story. And I'm just going to close with a reminder of our whakatauki, which was that one about looking to the past for guidance to see what is needed. That's what our history does for us, and we can all learn lessons from that. And I'll also close with our karakia whakamātunga. So thank you, everyone. Kua mutu a mātou mahi, mō tēnei wā, mānakatia mai mātou katoa, o mātou hua, o mātou whānau, aio ki te eorangi. And that's saying our work is finished for the moment. Bless us all, our colleagues, our families, and peace to the universe. So thanks, everyone. Thanks for coming. Great to see you.